Hey guys, welcome to our lesson on the six kingdoms. Now I know when we've been doing zoology, we started off with the vertebrate-invertebrate lesson, right? And we learned about animals that were vertebrates, which means they have a backbone, that's right, and animals that were invertebrate, and the prefix in means not, so they don't have a backbone. And then we started learning about the classification of vertebrates, or the different families of vertebrates. Can anybody remind me what those 5 families are? That's right, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. That's right, thank you. So we've learned a lot, we've explored a lot about all of those animals. And those are all animals. Today, we're going to learn about other kinds of living things. Did you know that there were other living things on the earth, not just animals? Well, that's right, there are plants. We have learned about plants in botany, and they are alive too, aren't they? Yeah. So, animals and plants, they are both alive. Did you know there were other living things on the planet? No? All right, well, that's what we're going to find out about today. So let's look. Here we have what we call the 6 kingdoms lesson. As there are 6 kingdoms of life. Now, when I started teaching this lesson, there were only 5 kingdoms. It was called the 5 kingdoms lesson. But scientists are always discovering new things. So in the time that I have been giving this lesson, they discovered a new kingdom and they found a new classification. So now they've changed it. And that's the cool thing about science, is that scientists are always researching, they're always learning new things. That's pretty neat, huh? Maybe one day one of you guys will become a scientist and learn something new. I bet you will. Okay, so there is what scientists think the oldest type of living thing on Earth. And it is so tiny, we can't see it with our eyes. We can only see it with a microscope. They are called archaea. So here I'm going to show you a picture of archaea. And all these pictures are actually taken through a microscope. Yeah. So they are so tiny that people didn't even know about them until microscopes were invented. And the really cool thing about archaea is they like to live in the hottest places, the coldest places, the most poisonous places on Earth. They flourish there. So like down at the bottom of the ocean and the deep sea vents that spew out poisonous gases, archaea love to live there. And in the coldest places in Antarctica, where it looked like nothing is alive, guess what? Scientists have found archaea there, and they like it. So, scientists have studied them, and they believe that they might be the first things that were ever on the earth. Isn't that amazing? When we looked at the pictures of Yellowstone, and we saw the grand prismatic springs, remember all the beautiful rainbow colors around it? Those are archaea. Isn't that cool? And scientists are studying them, and they are learning a lot about life through archaea. So that's the first kingdom. The second kingdom is also tiny, 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 tiny. So tiny that we can only see it, again, with a microscope. And again, scientists did not know it existed until microscopes were invented. And that is called the bacteria family. Now, bacteria, some of you guys have heard of bacteria. Sometimes you say, oh, bacteria are bad. And there are some bacteria that make us really sick. Germs, a lot of times when we talk about washing our hands to get the germs off, we're talking about bacteria. But there's also bacteria that are helpful. So here I have a picture of this bacteria that lives in your intestines. Yeah, rub your belly right down there. That's alive in you right now. And it's helping you. It's good for you. Your body needs it to help digest its food. Isn't that cool? And here's another picture of a different type of bacteria. This is called cyanobacteria. And this is another helpful bacteria. It lives in the water and it uses the sunlight to help create its food. Scientists think that it might have had an important role when the earth was developing and cleaning up the oceans. Also, there's bacteria in foods that we eat, like cheese and yogurt, that help us. Again, they go into our intestines and help us. So here I have some cards that have that information on it. So when you're doing the lesson on your own, if you forget some of the information, you can look here. It's like your control card there. All right, the next kingdom of life is one of my favorite. It's called the Protista kingdom. Can you say Protista? Yeah, Protistas are basically the weirdos. When scientists were organizing all the different kinds of life, they had all these living things that just didn't really seem to fit. And so they're like, you know what? We're just going to make it its own kingdom. So they called it the Protista kingdom. And there are things in it like slime mold. Oh, look at that. So gross. Slime mold. And tiny, tiny protozoa. Look at that. And giant, giant kelp. This grows in the ocean and it can grow taller than the ceiling. So in this kingdom, they're so different. There's the tiny protozoa that's microscopic. Giant sea kelp, slime mold is normal size, but these are organisms that didn't really seem to fit anywhere else. They were not plants, they're not animals. So scientists are like, you know what? We're going to give them their own kingdom. They're the Protista. And the next kingdom is called the fungi kingdom. And I think fungi, like they're fun, right? I think you guys might be a little bit more familiar with these. Mushrooms are part of the fungi family. We've seen mushrooms, yeah. Lichens. Have you guys seen those growing on trees? They are fungus. And, ugh, gross. Look at the mold growing on that orange mold. Have you guys seen moldy food? Yeah. Ugh. Well, did you know that was a fungus? Fungus might seem kind of gross, but it's actually really important. It's a decomposer. It grows on different things and it breaks them down. That's how it makes its food, and it decomposes. So like when a tree falls down in the woods, lichens and mushrooms and mold will grow on it and decompose it and turn it into dirt, which helps the cycle of life continue. So even though fungus might seem, it's really important. The next kingdom of life we're a little bit more familiar with. It's the plant kingdom. Yeah, from our botany lessons, we know a lot about plants. What are some things that we know about plants? That's right, they use sunlight to make their own food. That's really special about plants. What else do we know? Most plants don't move around. You're right, most plants stay in one spot. They need water. That's right. Well, here's a plant that doesn't need very much water, a cactus. And here, oh, this is a special type of plant. Yeah, a Venus flytrap. That is a carnivorous plant, isn't it? That means it does catch some insects, which is really cool. Then we have, flowers and water lilies and trees and moss on the trees. 2 plants in that picture, right? So we know that plants use sunlight for food. They can make their own food. They produce a lot of food, right, for a lot of different living things. And then the last kingdom that we're going to talk about, the one that we probably know the most about, is the animal kingdom. Yeah, we know all about animals, don't we? So here are some animals. Wasp. Yep. Sea turtle. You can put that one out. Bird. What's that one? Up, ladybug. Yep, tiger. Orca. Cute puppy dog. And look at that little teeny tiny frog. Ah, so cute. So yep, these are all animals, and we are kind of experts on animals, aren't we? We know a lot about that kingdom. We know that they can be divided into vertebrates and invertebrates. That's right. What kingdom are we humans a part of? That's right, the animal kingdom. Now I have some real life examples. This is a type of protozoa, seaweed. Yeah, so here we can put this down with our our protista, not protozoa, our protista. And here, I don't know if you can see that. What kingdom do you think that belongs to? I don't know. You think it's a fungus? No, a plant. Actually, it's a sponge. And a sponge, this is going to be crazy, it's an animal. It doesn't look like an animal I've ever seen. I don't see any eyes. Nope. Legs. Nope. But it's an animal. So soon, when we do the classification of invertebrates, we'll learn how that is an animal. So that is the lesson. We have some really cool books here that you can read after you do the lesson. This is called Tiny Life in Your Body, on Your Body. So you can read that and find out more about what kingdom do you think that might be talking about? Yeah, bacteria. And then here we have a book on kelp. Remember, kelp was part of the protista. That's a family we don't know very much about. So I thought that book would be interesting to learn more about protista. And then if you want to do some research, we have this book, Tree of Life. And this has really neat information. If you were, for example, wanting to research about the protista, have so much information here. Or if you wanted to research about the fungus kingdom, looky there, so much information. Now, what could you do as an extension, as a kick it up a notch? What do you think you might do when you do this lesson? Read a book and take an AR quiz? Yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, write some sentences. Yeah, pick your most favorite types of life from the kingdom and write sentences. Make a mini book. Yep, love it. True and false book. That's a great idea. Here on our Kick It Up a Notch card, there are some questions. What about this? Choose a kingdom of life other than animals, research it, and write a paragraph telling why we need this kingdom. What would happen if this kingdom went extinct? Well, that's an interesting thought. Like, we kind of talked about what would happen if plants were extinct, right? But do you think fungus are important? Do you think we need those? I mean, what would happen if they went extinct, or protista, or archaea? Interesting to think about. So we have our Kick It Up a Notch cards with ideas, or your ideas. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with as you do this lesson. All right? Thanks for coming to the lesson, guys.